So welcome to another episode of Wired for Wellbeing. I'm here with my wonderful friend and colleague, Sue Coltman, as always, and we're here with another guest, one of our 18 speakers for this year's Viva event. As you know, we're proudly sponsored by us, me and Sue, the Viva event team. So yeah, really looking forward to this session. Let go and hand over to Sue. She's going to introduce our lovely guest.
Good afternoon, morning or evening. I don't know if that's the right order, but anyway, welcome to Natasha Swerdloff, who we're delighted to introduce to you this afternoon. Natasha's got a wealth of experience, spans 3 decades at least, although it's hard to believe that's possible. She's so young and exploring the inside-out nature of life. And we're hoping this afternoon, we're pretty confident that we can be offering a conversation to you that really is discerning in terms of we know that life is challenging, and yet we can offer a conversation that maybe brings to you an understanding that can really be helpful. We could say transformational, but I think I'm going to leave it to Natasha. Natasha, we know that you are an author and you've currently got a book that's in the last stages of being written and edited, etc. You already have co-authored a book with Dicken Bettinger called Coming Home, which is a lovely title. And I think that really is what we're about, isn't it? Coming home to true nature. And also a children's book. And that's very welcome. So I'm going to ask you, please, if you would say perhaps a little bit about the nature of your book in a way, what it's conveying and how it's designed to be really helpful to people. So welcome.
Well, thank you, first of all, both of you, for having me. It's really wonderful to be here with you. And yes, after writing our first book, Coming Home, Dicken and I talked about how coming home is very much, we're preaching to the choir almost. A lot of people who are already interested in the inside out nature have read the book. It's translated into 14 languages. So we wanted to write a book that was reaching outside of our normal audience. So we tried to think of what are normal people. That's me too. But what is something that everyone wants? What is it that we're all looking for? Even if we're not interested in self-help or in spirituality, but what do we want? Don't we want a life of ease or a life with more ease? Now, what does that mean? That's what we're trying to come to at this book. It doesn't mean that life doesn't challenge us, like you just said. It doesn't mean that, we don't get hit from one side and then from the other. We do. But it means that there's something we can know about how we work that's helpful. There's something we can understand about how life is being lived from within that's really helpful. Not so that life doesn't challenge us, because it just does, but because the way we come through it is with more ease and more grace, so we don't suffer so much. So we've really tried to put ourselves in the place of ourselves before we learned about this, which is for me about 14 years ago now that I started knowing about this. And I looked at what are some of the changes that I've had in my life. So one of them is that I used to always fight with my mother. I don't know if you've had that within your life, but I used to always fight with her. And after being just 3 months, starting to understand something about how my mind works, I noticed that whenever I saw my mom, I didn't get angry. And first I was like, what's going on here? Why am I not reacting the way that I did? And I noticed that something had fallen away. And that got me really curious. Now, at the time, I didn't know what had changed because it was so new to me to start to look at how the mind works that I didn't quite understand what it was that I'd seen. That came later. Other things in my relationship to my husband also started to change. I would say, if I was going to say it shortly, my reactions to people's behavior simply fell away. Where I would be, why are you saying that? And don't you say that to me? And I just didn't. I was listening to them, and it was easy for me to see that what was going on in their world was they were believing their thinking. They were believing their judgments. And then I started to notice that I didn't judge the same way that I used to. I simply stopped. So let me come with a more recent example. I was a few weeks ago, very tragically, a close family member tried to commit suicide. And of course, we were shocked, we were stunned, it was a very close family member. And I noticed that my thinking went to, you're a psychotherapist. Why didn't you pick up on that? What's going on here? Why haven't you, what kind of things have you been missing? But I noticed that there was a part of me that was just incredibly loving and caring and compassionate towards this family member. Whereas before I would have gone, why didn't you talk to us? Why didn't you speak to us? Why didn't you say something? We would have been there for you. I would have come from anger. And now it was almost like it was flipped on the other side. And I just came from, how can I help? How can I support you? I didn't talk to her about what had happened, what had triggered it. I didn't talk to her about how she'd even tried to do it. I simply came from love. There's something that has shifted so transformationally inside of me, where the judging mind, which we all have, and I used to have it a lot, it's simply that it doesn't do the same thing anymore. Now, why doesn't it do that? Because that's, of course, what's people's minds. How do you go from judging both other people, but also, of course, also myself, to coming from a loving place? Now, the beautiful thing here is it's not a doing. I am not doing being more compassionate. I'm not doing more love. It's happening by itself because there's something fundamental that I've seen about how we work, which is that, let me say it in using a metaphor. Imagine that you're standing on two skis, right? You're going down the slopes, but the way we've been taught going down the slopes is being on one ski. I'll say some more about that. The one ski that we've been learnt or taught to rely on is the intellect, right? We've been taught to, you've got to get a career, you've got to do well, and you have to figure it out, and you have to get ahead, and all these things. So it's like we've learnt to go down the slope on one ski. Now, we get very good at it. The ski gets very deeply into the snow, and it gets very slippery because we're doing it a lot. We also get quite strong in that leg. But there's something that we overlook, which is there's a sort of another ski here. We call it sometimes intuition. We kind of sense there's something here, but we're so reliant on this one. And the thing is, when we only go down the hill on one ski, we also get stressed, we get overwhelmed, we push ourselves. And I used to be one of those people. I had a career as a business consultant. I was constantly pushing myself to do more, make more money, live in a bigger house and drive a bigger car. I was completely on that track until I burned out. At 36, I was depressed and overweight, and I was just not a happy girl. And the entire time, there was this other sense, there's something here that I'm missing. I would occasionally sort of touch it, like on vacation, or you have a glass of wine and there's a sense that there's something here on the other side. But we're taught so much to rely on the one side. So when we do that, it's also the judgmental mind, the analytic mind that keeps going. It gets very strong. Now, when I started in 2012, learned about this inside out understanding that we call the three principles, I suddenly saw the bridge between my intellect and something that I will call my true nature. There was a bridge. And so going down the slope now, is much easier because there's an in and out. Now the intellect is not the bad guy here. The intellect is a very useful tool that I use all the time, but I'm much more balanced in the way that I'm going through life, because I now see the bridge. What is the bridge? The bridge is thought. I've seen how when we think that something is true, when we think it's the only truth that there is, and we rely on that, we start feeling the stress and tension that comes from thinking that that's the only way things can be. Now, when we see that the nature of thought is that it's something that comes and goes, our experiences come and go all the time. Like the shock of somebody trying to take their own life, and then the relief that it didn't work for them, and the relief that they're in recovery and getting better and seeking help. That's all going to happen. But the way I went through that is with much more ease and grace, because I know that there's something else that's true, that I know there's something here inside that is completely at ease, completely at peace. And I see that for this person in my life also, that she has misunderstood something very important, which is that she's not one single wave on the ocean. She is part of the ocean. But in that moment, she forgot that. In that moment, she thought she was all by herself, and no one cared about her. That was what was going through her mind. And so because she believed in that illusion so much, she thought, what's the point of being here? Nobody's going to miss me. Just yesterday, I had a call from somebody who said, can you please help my auntie? She's been depressed the past 2 years. She's just come out of hospital and she's now in a home. But she doesn't want to live anymore. She's had 40 times, what's it called when they give you electroshock, I think it's called in English. And she's just lost her will to live. And so I said, of course, I'll speak to your aunt. And so I did. So this woman is telling me, I used to love doing things. I used to love being with people. I'm a very devout Christian. I say prayers every morning, and I don't believe that God would ever punish me if I took my own life. And I just feel like I'm done. And I said, if God thought you were done, you would have died. You are a part of a much larger system. But we go through life like this. We can only see like only through a keyhole what we can see. But there's an intelligence behind everything that sees it all. And she started seeing, I said, how many children do you have? Well, I have 3. How many grandchildren do you have? Well, I have 8. And I started showing her that we are all connected in a web of life, and that she matters. And only because she was in the misunderstanding of her thought that she didn't matter, was she even considering not being here anymore. So all I helped her do was to see a bigger picture, and to show her that we're all connected into one web of life, and that believing that one single thought, nobody's going to miss me, is what many people leads them to take their own life, because there's no hope. Nobody's going to miss me. I'm just taking up space. I've heard it many times. I've worked with a lot of people who wanted to end their life. Luckily, no one has of the ones that I've been working with, as far as I know. But it's so amazing to start seeing what happens, and little lights came on in her eyes. And this is a woman who's now in a home, and she said, "You're right. You're right. I was seeing myself as being just me, but I see that I'm a big part of a larger picture." And I used the word God because she was very Christian. I just believe that we are all part of the same web of life. We are part of the same life force, and we're not disconnected from that. And so there's seeing that One, we believe our thoughts, and when we believe that, we get stuck in a very limited, narrow mind, and very narrow very narrow way of thinking about ourselves. Two, we're actually connected to a much larger intelligence that is the life force, the fact that we are living, breathing, watching this right now, listening to this right now. And also that there's this consciousness that allows us to be aware of all of this. What a gift. What a gift it is to be aware of, oh, I'm thinking narrow thoughts about myself right now. Right now, I'm believing that I'm this little wave, and I'm just here, and the other waves are looking nicer than me, and they're all much better, and they can do curly things, and I can't. And then starting to look down and going, oh my gosh, I'm part of the entire ocean. So there's these three principles that are what creates our experience of being here. I had a really wonderful insight just a couple of weeks ago. I was sitting quietly reflecting, which I love to do in the mornings. And I noticed that present moment, I was in the present moment. There was a deep feeling of just being there. And then I noticed that experience always comes and goes. And I was noticing how it was just after the event had been with my family member. And so I was noticing that was one experience. It came and it went. I was in the experience of just sitting, that in the moment, that was all that there was. But it was so obvious that the moment never changes. It was, I've talked about the now before. It's not new to me to see, but it was even more profound. It was like, this moment is actually perfect as it is. Now I can judge the experience. Oh, I don't like this experience. This is horrible. Whatever could be going on in our lives, because things go on in our lives, mine too, as you can hear. But the moment itself is pristine. The moment itself is untouched by whatever experience is coming in, even when it hits me hard. And so I can either be caught up in the moment, in the experience, I mean, or I can sort of fall back into that moment, just pure consciousness, just the being, the noticing of the experience, and seeing how that experience cannot touch the moment. The moment is forever. The moment is ever present. The moment is formless. So nothing can destroy it. Now here comes the really important thing that Dicken and I are trying to get across in our book, which is that if I believe I am the little wave, if I believe that the experience I'm having right now is all there is, I will constantly be in the waves of the ocean. Sometimes I'm lucky and there's not so many waves, and I can, oh, okay, I can breathe for 5 minutes, and then the next one comes and hits you hard. Or you can start seeing, oh, I am the ocean. There is something deeper here. There is something, just even if you just go into the ocean just a few feet, there's a calmness. There's a peace. So it becomes like a foreground, background movement that we can, that, oh, I can be caught up in the experience and it will do all kinds of things to me. Or I can see, oh, I'm caught up right now, but I know that there's a place that I can go. I can go within. I can go deep inside to the space that's always here, that cannot be destroyed, that is always peaceful, that is always calm. And I can rest. And the more that we do that, the more that, and that's coming back to our first book, Coming Home, the more we come home to that space in ourselves, the more it becomes our natural way of being. So we live our life more from there. It's interesting, yesterday, my father's girlfriend was trying to visit him, and she was ringing the doorbell for 20 minutes and he didn't answer. And she sent me a very panicked text. Oh, I think we have to call 911 or whatever it's called in whatever country you're in. And I was like, let's just take it easy here. Let's just see what's going on. It's probably because he wears hearing aids and he doesn't always remember to put them in. So something in me was being very calm about it, and she was getting really frightened. And I happen to know the neighbor because it's my cousin who lives next door to my father. So I could call him and say, would you go and bang hard on the door? Because I don't think he can hear the doorbell. And he did, and my dad was there, and all was well. But it's so normal to get revved up in the thinking that looks so true. It's so normal to get into the drama. Whereas that's the huge thing that's happened to me after all these years, is that the drama is always saying, come into the drama, come into the spin, come into the turbulence. And I'm like, I don't think so. It's actually much nicer to be here. And the great news is that from this space, I'm much more able to handle whatever comes my way, because life does this, as you can hear to me too. And when it does, the peace that I come from allows me to deal with the situations with much more calm. Like when it happened, and we had to go to the hospital, I said to my husband, okay, let me drive. I can see you're more upset than I am. I'll take the car. And we drove there, and by the time we got to the hospital, there was more peace in both of us. But it's just so, it's amazing that we just do better when we find this place. So a life of ease is not that life doesn't challenge us, but we can learn something and see something for ourselves that makes it easier for us to deal with and go through the ups and downs with more grace.
I think maybe Sheila and I are waiting for each other here, because I've just relaxed into a beautiful space listening, and 20 years on, I'm still so entranced and so enjoying the fact that this isn't a thing that you do and it's done. This is an understanding that continues to grow and to enhance your life. You're not, and as you say, really importantly, you're not doing it. And I think once you have a taste of that, you get a little taste of that, and I think there's the wisdom that gives you that. It just opens the window, and then it opens the door, and then it's like, oh, I've got so much freedom here. How did that happen? And yet, learning about the principles that you so beautifully spoke about, that explains that, and that gives it that gravity. It gives, well, like gravity, they're principles. So it's not it's something that we can talk about as true. And when you were saying about thought, talking about thought, it just occurs to me how generally in relationships and in life, we don't mind changing our lives about first thoughts, like what should we have for dinner, what shall I wear, will I go out, will I stay in? It's really, we're used to that. And then somehow another thought is much more weighted, or now I'm getting a bit tied to that one. And then when it gets to belief and then to conviction, boy oh boy, does that feel like it's made of brick. And I think it's really so very helpful to see that it's the same intangible, if you like, substance. But I was going to invite you just to say about your children's book as well, if you would, because lots of young people I think would be really, really drawn to this and be really helped by it. So I wondered if you would.
Absolutely. Yeah, a few years into this, I said the same thing as probably many of us did. I wish someone would have told us. Thank you, Jack Pransky. And I wish somebody would have told us at a very early age. So I became interested in how can we speak about this to children. So I've had many children come to me from the age of, I guess, 5 to to 12 is what I would call children. And then, of course, I've had many teenagers. But I started to think about and reflect on how can I speak about this in a way that means that's easy for them to understand. And so when I came across a Danish children's book writer who knows nothing about the three principles, but has written many children's books, we started a collaboration that was really beautiful. He was very good at creating this world with these two children, Lulu and Leo, who goes on these adventures. And they, of course, meet a wizard, because you've got to have a wizard in a magical land. And he gave them three presents, three gifts that there's three symbols, but in the book they start to see that they're actually inside of them. And so through these magical adventures that they have, they come across different animals. We're using animals that are dealing with different things. So for instance, they are walking in this magical land one day, and they meet the Max, the squirrel. And he's very upset because it's his birthday and his friends didn't come. He'd made all these pancakes and his friends didn't come for his birthday. And of course he started to think about, they don't like me. They wanted to do other things. They like other friends more than me. And of course Lulu and Leo, who now knows that we can paint pictures that look true to us, and then we don't see other possibilities. They start talking to him about how he's painting pictures with his magic brush. And then they go out on a search, and then they find the panda and the ostrich that were his friends. And the ostrich has fallen down on the way to Max. It's fallen down the mountain, and its feathers are all ruffled, and it's stuck his head in the sand because it feels like, I can't show myself when I'm not looking pretty enough. Right? So we're trying to focus on things that are so normal, not only for children, we adults do the same thing, but we're trying to come to it with fun, and with these characters that you learn to love. And so of course then the squirrel sees that, oh, they were just stuck, and oh, but you look pretty even though your feathers are a little, funny, and you've got some dirt on you. And then of course they all go home and have pancakes. But there's little lessons in each chapter, so there's these 9 little adventures, and it's for children who are between 5 and 11 years old. It was very fun, and we're already planning our second one, which will come next year.
Beautiful. And I think I've seen somewhere they're going to be translated into English, or it already is.
It is
Oh,
already.
it already is in English. Wonderful.
And it's
Wonderful.
already also translated into German,
Yeah.
and somebody's translating it into French right now.
Oh, nice, nice. And as as I was listening, I was like, yeah, kiddies book, but actually for big kids too, right? For us
Yeah.
grown up children.
Because how often, like, we try to call someone and they're not answering, or we try to email them and they don't really return. What have I done? What's, and it's always about me. We get so self-centered. It's something about me. And most of the time it's, they were busy, they were on vacation, they were sick. I mean, there's so many possibilities, but we immediately go to something, it has something to do with me. And so that me focus instead of other focus is one of the keys to seeing that I suffer when I think that I'm this little wave. And when I start to see that I'm part of the ocean, and that not everything is about me, something really incredible happens. And something else that I've noticed over the years, and I know that you two feel this strongly too, which is that when you start seeing this for yourself, you want to give it away. You start to speak about it. You have conversations one-to-one, or you do seminars, or you put up beautiful events that people come to, because you can see that, wow, there's such a potential for people to experience life completely different. You've been touched by this understanding. I've been touched, and we want to touch others, which is why we do what we do.
One of the things I was going to mention and is you're based in Denmark, so it's where your home is, and I haven't yet visited, and I'd love to, but I hear, so much about this beautiful sort of organic community that's been created, where, we tried I tried back in 2024 to do something locally, and we put on events, but people would come from a long way away, but nobody came who lived in, this county. And it was curious to me, but I'd love to know how you feel that's happened, really. Is it just, as Sid used to say, touch someone on the shoulder and they wake up, and then, how's that happened?
Well, about 10 years ago, we got together a group of us. Well, it's actually 12 years ago. We got together 5, 6 people, and we said, let's create an organization that is nonprofit that wants to spread this understanding. And so it took us 2 years to create the organization. And then what we would do is once a year we would get together with all of us. The first year was only 19 people, and we would say, what would you like? How do you want to see this grow? In which area would you like to see it grow? And somebody said, I want it in schools, and I want it in jails, and I want it in my workplace. And we said, all right, now how can we support you in that? So we were very sort of grassroots. We were very much into how can we support you on that level. And if it didn't work, it would then it would fizzle out and we would do something else. But we were always asking, what would you like? What would you need support for? And now we are more than 800 paying members to the little organization, and there's gosh, almost 4,000 people in the Facebook group. And one of the beautiful things that I love is that we've got something we call coffee meetings all across the country. Anyone can open their house and they can say, come and have coffee at my place next Friday. Da, 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 da. I live here. And then who wants to come? And then people sign up for coming. So there's groups now all over the country. There's not a part of the country almost that doesn't have a community. And so those community gather and they start making other things. And so it's growing really from within. And it's the same idea that I then took to the work that I now do in Three Principles Global Community. So I left the Three Principles Danish community about 4 years ago to go into the global community. And I'm doing exactly the same. Together with Marina Galan, there's now 20 international communities. And it's the same idea. How can we support these international communities so that they go into their smaller communities and help and support? So we're supporting them so that they can support in their own language, in their own ways, through their own, every culture have their own way of doing things. So rather than being the 3PGC before was just sharing the principles beautifully, but it kind of kept to the same amount of people. Now we're trying to say, okay, how can we expand? Let's ask them, what do they need? What do they want? And so that's what we're doing now, and it's growing beautifully. And so we're very happy to see the growth that is now happening around the world.
Ah, it's beautiful. Thank you so, so, so much for being with us to record this podcast. And we're so looking forward to having you as a keynote speaker in November. Really looking forward to that. You keep it really simple, really light, very, very accessible. And I love that you're writing another book with Dicken. And thank you for sharing about your children's book. That was really helpful to me. How can people get in touch with you if they'd like to?
I would say that if you go to my YouTube channel, you simply put in my name, there's there's a lot of videos there, and they're all free. I have a website called the Principles Institute, and so you can go there also and see what's going on. And on 3PGC, which is the place where I'm part of the board, there's lots of things going on all the time that I'm part of. I give about 50% of my time away for free now. So I'm doing a lot of things to help organizations around the world so that they can help their communities. So that's really what I'm about these days.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for doing that. It's very needed in the world today, I believe. And yeah, again, thank you for your time. And we're out of time, unfortunately, but we could, I know we could go on for ages. But yeah, great to have you on the podcast. And for those listening, thevivaevent.com for tickets for 2025 and onwards. And we'll see you in the next one. Thanks very much. Bye for now.
Bye.